See, and most opticians will stay at their position for years. I think my last job before this, I was there for 10 years. So I mean, we kind of stick where we are because we enjoy it.
That's just so true. It's so true because it's about the patient connection. I know, I'm in South Central. Welcome to another episode of Optometry Profits Revealed with Peter Precht. Today we're with Jennifer Gill with Eyetastic Services. Jennifer is a licensed dispensing optician of 10 years in Florida. She's got 18 years in the industry. And before we discuss things, I had a brief conversation with Steve, who gave me some nuts and bolts of what you guys do. But I'm going to leave it to you to kind of explain Eyetastic's beginnings, where you're going, and then also want to connect it with the state of opticianry today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Peter. Well, Eyetastic Services, we work alongside finding opticians, optometrists, techs just for the eye care industry. A lot of what we really aim to do is not just find people, source them, and place them, but also motivate, empower, because we believe in retaining good associates. Sometimes it can be a little hard for certain areas, especially if you want to find like a really well-trained optician, but that's why we're here. We go through, we find active candidates, passive candidates, just to ensure that, your needs are met for your business.
It's true. I know several places where opticians have, this place is a bad term, but it's not necessarily untrue. Maybe earlier retirement than they were planning, that kind of thing. How would you describe the state of opticianry? Is it, because there's also a lot of young opticians coming into the industry too. Is there an average age you see, or is it a total mixed bag depending on where you are? Or
it's a mix. Age between some of the younger ones, newer, but they come from all different areas. So, I mean, you'll see people going into the opticianry industry from banking or, some sort of sales. They want to start to get more into the medical aspect of it, but they may not want to go per se to like a doctor's office. So eye care is like perfect. You're still consulting with patients, showing them stuff. So with that, I would say it's a mix. We get so many applicants from all over. Young, doesn't matter the age.
Right. I think that is awesome. And you talked about people coming in from other industries. That is really, really true, because I mean, there's a lot of gratification in what we do as opticians, but like you talk about, there's a whole medical component. There's a lot of things that can spark an interest inside you once you get exposed to an optometric practice and see what is going on. We talked a little bit about this just a few seconds ago when we were introducing ourselves. Like, from when you launched Eyetastic to now, like what are the surprises? What are the surprise avenues of business that you didn't necessarily think of when you very first envisioned what you were doing? Or for that matter, what has gone exactly to plan? What have you seen that's unfolded, and examples of a practice where you guys really hit it right out of the park for them, that kind of stuff,
I mean, there's been different opportunities. I know when we first launched Eyetastic Services, our main goal was, recruiting, finding people. And then when we start working more and more with the practices, we do see different avenues, a lot of the marketing aspect to it. And that's something we do work a lot with the clients with. And it's not so much marketing, it's marketing. So whenever candidates are looking at potentially maybe signing on with the practice, they kind of see how their culture is. So that was an area that we saw that was a huge miss in eye care, was just really promoting the culture and the brand in order to gain more candidates to it. And that's one avenue that I think there's still a lot of work to be done, and it's more for the eye care practices that need to, kind of work a little bit on the culture, just showcasing it. It's not saying they have bad culture. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying showcasing what their team's doing and making that warm, inviting, especially on avenues like LinkedIn and stuff too, where most people go to look for jobs.
There's a lot of truth to that, because practices could be night and day with the energy. Like when you walk into some, you feel how they feel. I can. I mean, I can sense it. So I would imagine the culture is a huge part of placement, because that's not always easy, and sometimes something that doesn't necessarily feel so warm and fuzzy for me is completely ideal for where they are. You
It
just, you
happens.
know, yeah, yeah. I mean, you don't. Far be it from me to judge, apples and oranges when these people are seeing, 80 people in the morning. They haven't even gotten into the afternoon. So it's. I mean, I do. I definitely can understand that element of it. You mentioned marketing as being. I guess that. I mean that it's so involved. Really, really, we were talking briefly. Boy, the way you promoted an optometric practice in 1995, 2005, 2015. I mean, connect those dots. Is it easy? Is that an easier thing for you to do? Is that more, is it more work?
No,
I
I
mean,
believe, with marketing, just have one of your associates. They can work on it a few hours every week. But you just,
right,
you want that image, not just, to patients. You want that warm, like, hey, why should I go to you compared to person across the street? What
right,
services do they provide? I know a lot of times, like even with the optometric, they're starting to get more into dry eye. So, they don't showcase that. What if someone has it? They may go to their, regular physician compared to, an optometrist or an
right,
ophthalmologist. So,
right. And how would they know,
yeah,
other than the experience, experiencing symptoms kind of thing. But yeah, that I totally agree with that. But that connects, I think the social media component connecting back in with the culture, that's kind of cool because it gives, I mean, I've seen some practices that seem so nutty, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'd be, I don't know if I'd like that, but it obviously it's perfect for them, and they're really active. Like LinkedIn, you talked about. I've seen some practices that are just constantly posting videos on LinkedIn. I'm like, wow. I mean, how engaged them, and then I'm thinking, how do they have time to do this? That's the other part of it too. Is like, but they are creating engagement. I mean, there's no question about it that it does work, and you have to start somewhere. That's the other thing.
it does. Like,
Because I was just gonna say, like, how for a practice that has been around a long time, but maybe there's been an ownership change. How do they go? How do they go from that, you know, panel
I mean, I would just do it. You got to start somewhere. Might
dispenser.
as well.
No, you're right. Yep, take the step and do it. And I guess maybe it is easier than you think. But creating that engagement with like I mentioned, like potentially an older client. People have reservations, I gather, if they are an older practice and they don't see the younger clientele coming through, or they see something changing, or like we always end up talking about here, people leaving with prescriptions and remedies that we have, obviously for that type of behavior. But um you know to kind of zoom some of this stuff forward in the business world, and we were also talking about the eye care art walk, and how how is the metaverse going to integrate with practices, how 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 is augmented reality going to impact purchasing, and medical. And I honestly, I really do believe that one of the cool things, this is more than one of the cool aspects of optical. One of the main things about optical is the component of art with style, with fashion, with medical. There isn't a whole that doesn't exist in a lot of places. Not that it isn't everywhere, but it opens up other channels of connecting from a B2B level. You know what I mean? So to connect Itastics services to this, you know, I guess what it is it creates an engagement with I don't want to say a retail space, but kind of a retail space that exists but doesn't exist, or people know about it but they don't know about it.
Yeah.
How do people get introduced to this? And I think that's the purpose of what they're doing. The purpose of the Eyewear Artwalk, in my mind, from what I understand, is to bring in people, because there is a huge interest in a click and buy
I mean, I
world
think
right
it's
now.
networking. I think it's really cool to, like with the art walk, bring in people that might like a little bit more art because glasses, they are a form of, cosmetics. People should, I will say, probably have 10 to 12 pairs every year. It might be a little expensive, but it's style. I
Right.
mean, it really is.
Oh, no,
So I think this is
no
ideal,
doubt.
and connecting with different people, not just in eye care, is exactly what we need. We need that awareness going on because it's going to help. If I look at it from the iTastic services point, it brings people more into eye care, but then it also helps expand the medical portion, the education out to other people that are not in eye care. So it's like a win-win all over.
Right.
But it's just
I
that
think the
engagement, just getting the people, word of mouth, bringing it in, lots of marketing, advertising.
right.
Yeah.
And to me that's fascinating. Obviously the just how far reaching marketing can be as opposed to when I began, in the industry. It is kind of jaw dropping, but like you talked about other industries, we're talking about the interconnections, the capability of bringing services in that didn't exist. You know, um, you're running a practice, and for whatever reason, you don't have optician all of a sudden. Um, what do you do? I mean, if you're an OD, obviously you're learning to be an optician if it's your place, but that's not what you signed up for, and you're kind of pulling away from the practice in a way.
Yeah, it's hard going
So
back and
have
forth. I don't know how they would do it. It's just too much. Like I love multitasking, but sometimes multitasking can kind of have a bad aspect to it. You don't do it as well as you would. So it's good to have somebody there, dispensing glasses, troubleshooting, educating patients on
absolutely
different styles.
right, and completely. And if you have to take that engagement remote until you can train your staff to do this as well, if they want to, you can you can function effectively in a lean way without compromising too many of your services. But like you said, you need that dispensing on the back end. And we had talked about, and this isn't rocket science. We know there's a shortage of ODs, but you mentioned that the shortage of opticians too, and that
In
kind of
some
surprised
areas,
me.
yes. You go to those
Um,
rural areas and, they're wanting because most of those practices are super busy and there might be only five,
right,
you're trying to bring them in, relocation. So, I mean,
right,
those are the areas that are really, patients want a trained optician there and there might only be five within 50 miles. I'm kind of
right.
exaggerating here, but
No,
it's something you see, and most opticians will stay at their position for years. I think my last job before this, I was there for 10 years. So I mean, we kind of stick where we are because we enjoy it.
that's just so true. It's so true because it's about the patient connection. I
Yes.
know, I'm in South Central PA, and I had practices between like Pittsburgh and Erie, even
Wow.
in my safety days. That exactly what you're saying. Experience the same thing where they're like, we can't find anybody experienced that wants to come here, and but they had this huge Amish population that loved them, and the
Oh,
relationships were rich, and it was a fantastic practice. It was a modernized barn,
wow.
and the whole bottom of it was a practice. It was brand new and gorgeous, and I yeah, I mean, but it was literally in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you could drive by and completely miss it. I certainly did when my first visit there. So you're right. This is a void, and connecting those dots and offering, something that can, ease that pain is so huge. Um, and it is sometimes it's this works or this won't.
Yes.
In the case of the Amish practice, this isn't going to work for them, and
Maybe, yeah.
a Mennonite, maybe, Well, the reality is that, there is a level of technology that can halt you in certain ways in certain places, like you talked about. Depends on where you are. It's a very different environment when you're in Chicago and, in St. Louis, even than you are in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. They're those cities even have different requirements. The populaces are different, with what they do and where they spend their money, how they live. It can be night and day in my mind. um the other thing we have mentioned that I do want to talk about, because you guys are pretty good with it in Florida, is education. um it could always be better everywhere, but let's face it, there's a bunch of states that don't even have licensing or associations, and we're seeing a little bit of an outflux and hopefully an influx. Well, we are seeing an influx of younger, and like you said, opticians that were in other fields, even, how do you see this developing? Do you think, like, what's going to be the market answer to it? Is it going to go automated? That was something I was going to talk to you about that we didn't quite get to touch on before. What are your thoughts on automation?
I mean, I like automation. I have to admit, my bank, it's an automated teller. There's a real person behind the screen, but I'm talking to, a computer or a TV screen. So I have
Right,
no issue. I know even
right.
McDonald's now, you don't even walk up to the register. You just do it on that little cubicle thing, order
Kiosk.
it, and
Yep.
it's there. So automation to me, I love automation. I'm in Tampa, so I'm more of like the faster pace, like get in, get out, get in, get out. So with automation, I really appreciate it. As far as education, I think education is number one, especially in our industry as well too. I know a lot of the associations we're starting to get more state associations. The Opticians Association of America, they're doing a really good rollout with that. So I'm happy about that. But as far as automation, yeah, I definitely see it coming more and more into our industry.
Well, and the other thing that we had talked about that kind of separates, iTastic services from your competition per se is the fact that you bring a background of experience from the industry, from practice management, from being an optician. You relate to their situation. You've been there, you've lived it, kind of thing, and
And
it is different.
it is. And I mean, part of recruiting is it's not just like placing people and putting them somewhere where they don't deserve to be. It's finding that right fit. So having that background, understanding that even as opticians, some opticians prefer more private practice. Some of them prefer more corporate. Some prefer more medical aspects of it. It's just understanding which area they would prefer to be and ensuring that we're making sure that when they make this life-changing event, it's a good fit for them as well as a good fit for, the practice as well. So coming from the industry, we've managed all areas of it. We understand the operational aspect of it. We always get it where people that we speak to, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe
Right.
you're in the industry, and they're excited about it. Because we
Right.
say lensometer instead of lensometer and little aspects like that. So, I mean, it's not just that. That was a little joke, but you know what I
No,
mean?
I do, and it's in 10 to 15 minutes you can tell whether
Yeah.
somebody has spent some time, working with patients in a dispensary of any level. Um,
Yes.
um, a cool component that connects completely with just the raw education component is the practical part,
Yeah.
um, and that I was I'm on the membership, head of the membership committee at the Optician Association in Pennsylvania, and um, I do think that there's strong interest for that because there are people that come in and they're maybe expected to know some stuff. You know, 37 plus years, I still see stuff pop up that I'm like, what? I've never seen that done that way. You know, um, just amazingly clever ways to get really strong ad powers. I
Yes.
mean, I just, it blows my mind. I'm like, that's really cool what you're doing on the back surface of that lens. How are you doing that, with an old round seg or something like that? And I don't know. I just, that where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
And that is one of the really most amazing things about opticians. They do tackle things that people don't, maybe don't get the recognition for that, within the
That's
industry people do. There are some, there are some specialty people that do get some recognition, but often it isn't. Yeah, often it is kind of an unsung thing, But again, bringing clarity into someone's world, night and day. I mean, I think it was last year. I was 7 or 8 year old kid. I'm putting -4s on him, and man, you talk about his world changing. I
oh,
mean,
that's like the
yeah.
best too when you see that.
Oh, it is, and I've been posting several of those on LinkedIn
Oh,
because obviously it's a feel good video, but I want people to view those videos and connect it with the professionals that are doing the job to make
that's
that
true.
happen. Um, I mean, It is just as much about them as it is the clarity that's going on. But what it is, or what it's a little bit of an extra thing, and a huge trumpet blowing for our entire industry, is that open gratification. People don't get to see it all the time. You and I have seen it time and time and time again, where people get those glasses the first time, and it it does not fall, the gratification doesn't fall short on me ever. But yeah, to make sure that people recognize what goes into that moment, or the precursors and the aftercare
Yeah.
for that. We didn't even touch on things like myopia management and things like that. But this, like you talked about, dry eye, myopia management, these are real things. I mean, my entire career, I've been putting high minuses on people and going, why am I doing this all the, why does this guy go from a -4 to a -8 so fast? What's
I
going on? And, how come I didn't,
happened to
so
my
there's a lot
daughter. So
involved.
grown ups thinking the same thing, like how, like, but yeah, all that up close. And
Right.
yeah, she loved that little phone. And I think the phone started to come right around time, like I think in the early 2000s, when most people had cell phones at the time, unless it was just because I was like still a teenager. But then she had it,
Right.
and all of a sudden it just kept changing every year. I'm like, what is going on?
Right. Right. Yeah, it's the truth, and we'll know more as things go
Of
on,
course.
but we can pick some symptoms up and do some things and change some habits and things like that. I was talking to my son just before our interview saying, hey, you know, I think while I love what we're doing right now, I segregate my time in front of this computer. I have to. I have to get out. I have to breathe the air, see the grass, the trees. That's critical for me. I know that works for me. Do what works for you. If that's not a capacity for you, I have a daughter who lives in Center City. Go for it. Walk the streets. Do what you got to do. You know what I mean? Get out, experience it. Get away from face and phone, because I do think it can cause a lot of other stuff
Yeah. I,
beyond the eyes.
I try to stay off the social. I agree with you. Like I'm a big gardener, so I love going out gardening, just playing with
Yeah.
my little plants. But yeah, social media, you get addicted to it. I try to stay off of those, because then all of a sudden I see myself scrolling and scrolling, and it's not good for you.
Right. I totally agree. But it is kind of, when I look at something like Eyewear Artwalk 2024, I think it is neat that it can go all the way around to all these different cities and virtually connect, just like we're doing now, but in a lot of different ways. And a lot of different ways, a lot of different business implications, a lot of different product introduction that you can bring in, have already in place. This thing shows up in a city. Hey, we're already in these 5 practices. Whew, you're ahead of the curve. But to have that experience where people can go and put something on and see something they saw in Omniverse City before them, I think that's really cool. I think that's going to be fun. I think that's going to be awesome to involve, people, practices, opticians. You know, um, Opticians are going to need to select what they need to go forward, because they're being removed from the sale of glasses. Online eyewear sales are real. They happen all the time. It's not going to slow down. You can't even get accurate numbers from 20, 21, 22, which I think is nuts. Um, well, I mean, it's, it's way more than tens of millions.
Yeah. People like
Just
the
in
easy, It's so easy. Enter the
right.
prescription in there, click submit, done. Half
Yep.
the time. And, that's why I think like with this, it's perfect. Just bringing people together.
Totally. Give the opticians a professional chance to advise in that environment. Hopefully that advice can take those sales back through practices. I mean, that is our goal, to keep the practice growth going and to fill that void for you. This has been a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you giving me the time and having a chance to talk about what Itastic Services is doing and where you're going forward, and even the marketing part. I could talk for an hour about just the integration of marketing, what social media works where, who follows what, age group, all that kind of stuff. To me, those are interesting, analytics, and I think there's more to it than I have a clue. That's for sure. Thank you so much,
Oh,
Jennifer. I
you're
really
most
appreciate
welcome.
this.
Thank you for having me too. I
Cert-
really appreciate it, Peter.
Oh, this has been wonderful. I look forward to having you again somewhere down the road, hopefully soon.
Yes.
We'll put all the links to Tastic Services, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Optometry Profits Revealed with Peter Precht. Take good care, and we will see you soon.